It's been my experience and my understanding that usually a catastrophic experience usually awakens a psychic ability or awakens a psychic part of a person's being. It turns them on. It flips them on. Did you find that with yourself? Or?
I feel that the reason, yes, for myself personally, I've had to undergo, unfortunately, a lot of physical problems. And for others and the clients that I read, when a person is going through a traumatic experience, they tend to, at that point in their life, go to prayer and go to God.
Right.
And as you know, prayer is a form of meditation which centers us and grounds us and connects us with the divine. And that brings us into spiritual light. And when we're connected with the divine, our intuition automatically opens because we were all born with this ability.
Right. We just have to awaken it. I'd like to share something with the audience, the viewing audience, that as I was interviewing you at home, you were preparing to do a reading, and Diane was doing about a half-hour meditation before she does a reading, so this kind of puts it all together about the readings and the opening.
Well, the reason why I meditate is because it's very important to put your ego aside. Okay?
Yes, the good old ego.
So you don't worry about being right or wrong, but center yourself and allow yourself to be an instrument for God. And I do meditation to clear my thoughts, and I go into prayer and ask God to bless me and my client. And I always say, I'm about to read your child, because this is God's child, and I name the client and ask that a healing be given in this reading and that I receive the information that's necessary. And it always works, because although I always say there's time for questions, they never have any questions.
I've had a reading with you, Diane. I know it's true. Eileen, I know you cannot possibly give a tarot card reading lesson today, but how does the tarot card work in relation to your psychic ability? I mean, you're laying out the cards, you said that, and I know each card has a definite meaning, or meanings, plural, but how does it work with your psychic ability itself?
What it does is it opens up my psychic ability. When I lay out the cards, for instance, this is the Hermit, and this card can mean a teacher. But say if I'm doing a reading for someone else, for someone, it may flow through me. I'll hear from my guides that in this case it means a doctor, and sometimes it could be upside down, meaning the doctor is not finding the problem. So I'll get information as I'm actually doing the reading, and sometimes just new meanings come right out of the blue to me.
Right.
This is the Ace of Pentacles. Tell me
you picked a good one.
Total success.
Success, money, abundance.
Could be a contract.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you look at the cards, you don't only look at the card, but you have some kind of channel or message coming to you. It isn't the card itself?
Well, when I look at the card, I see things. Now, for instance, what just caught my eye now are white flowers. They stand out to me right here. And that may be some kind of herb for the person that I would be reading.
And you would get this message through channels, besides looking at the card, through channels? So both of your channels in your own right, you both use the channeling in doing a psychic reading in one way or another.
Well, I use cards also, but I find that most psychics, during their as they evolved, use some tool. I call the cards a tool. Some will use cards, some will use jewelry, better known as psychometry. I also use pictures. So these are just really tools, because for me in an emergency, sometimes without anything, I could still get the information. However, I think the cards help with the information you're receiving, and that it helps you focus the information. It also could put time into perspective. Eileen and I have both encountered opening a spread and knowing this is the past or something very recently traumatic that happened, only to reshuffle and now see better cards, which is obviously the future.
Do both of you work together?
Yes. We have a kind of an interesting story how we met.
I'll hear it, yeah.
We met through the club. And Diane, I got a call from this person named Diane who asked me for a reading, a telephone reading, which I do. As distinguished from a 900 number, this is just a regular...
Excuse me. my viewing audience, did you notice Eileen said there is a difference between a 900 number where usually the person is paid to keep you on the line as long as possible, as opposed to getting a legitimate reading from legitimate psychics who are reputable and will give you good advice.
It's the same as if you're in person. When you have a reading with us, it just makes it convenient if you live further from the psychic that you choose to have a reading with. I read people all over the country, so that's the advantage. But the fee is the same.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm sorry.
So Diane wanted a reading, and I gave her a telephone reading. And about a week, and she never told me she was a psychic, so I had no clue. And so I just read, and I think she was pleased with the reading. And about a week later, I called her from my office, actually, to give her some information. And we had a nice little chat. And then I was just about to hang up when Diane says to me, "Who's the person with the initial R around you?" And I said, "Nobody." And she said, "I don't mean this life, I mean the other life."
The other life again.
So I said, "Oh, well, wait a minute. I had an Aunt Rose who was a nun who was on the other side, who was very close to me." So Diane said, "Oh, yeah, I'm getting symbols, 3 rings, faith, hope, and charity." And she was a sister of charity. Then she really blew me off the chair because she said, she's standing with a man named John Joseph Anthony. And those were my father's first 3 names. And one of them was his confirmation name, which he never knew.
That's another way that channeling is used as a healing, I find, in my work. I've also done kidnapping cases, but in channeling the deceased members, and recently I had a client who unfortunately lost a 4-month-old baby. And when you can give very specific details, it reinforces that this isn't all there is. There is another life. And that brings such healing, and that's one of the areas of my work that I find very rewarding.
I can validate that also, because that's how I got started after my son passed away, and an excellent reading, a specific reading with names, no generalizations. I felt so comforted to know that there is more, and that his soul, his being, is safe on another plane, and it just started me seeking, and here I am a little over a year later, and it helps people
letting go.
To let go. I mean, I let go, and you say, how can you let go? Your son passed away. Because now I know he's all right. To me, it's like being in Chicago or California.
And it's so important that you do let go for the spirit on the other side.
Right.
They have to go on. They also go through levels of transcending as we go through our lessons here. And if we keep holding on, that soul can't move forward. And I, as a channel, can actually feel the tightened energy and the sadness of the spirit. It's of course necessary, absolutely, on a psychological level to go through a mourning period, but there is an extent, and if we understand that there is this other side and that spirit needs to go on, and we let them go with love, then there's peace on both sides, I think.
Okay. One of my main purposes with the club and with this cable show is to show that there is a spirituality, a peace that comes from being psychic, and as we said, psychic is in tune with body, mind, and spirit, and better things happen. You open up, and good things will happen to you. It's also to put the term psychic in a positive light. Now, here we have 2 beautiful, intelligent young ladies who are speaking coherently. They're not flakes. We're not all flakes. And this is the stigma
For the moment.
This is the stigma that the media, especially older movies with the Charlie Chans, with the turbans and the crystal balls and the tables rising.
I have to comment on this.
Okay, this is what we have to overcome, because this is the stigma the word psychic has. And Diane was talking about helping heal and recognize illnesses in the body. I had that happen to me. I was told by 2 separate psychics that I had a high sugar content diabetes, and my doctor didn't pick it up till a month later. And it can happen. And I have to inject, always go to your physician, always, please. But in the meantime, when he's not helping you or there is a doubt, don't be afraid to seek an alternative method of healing.